Welcome back to another episode of More Than Music with your host Andrew Kazir, the owner and editor of Upstate Aesthetic. More Than Music is an interview series put together for Black Hills State University and Upstate Aesthetic to help myself and the listeners get to know some of the unique and incredible artists from Upstate New York. This week we are joined by Matthew Cornwell, an artist from Upstate New York who's been making high quality music for some time now. He's an artist that I really looked at even when I lived in New York and was trying to make music as the prime example of a local artist doing some stuff that I was really into at the time. And now over the last couple of years I've gotten to know and appreciate Matthew both as an artist and then over the last year as a friend. So how are you doing, Matthew?
I'm not too bad, brother. How about yourself?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Having a nice, relaxing day. Got to send out my first Upstate Aesthetic T-shirt today, so that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, doing some of the merch game now, so that's fun. But I'm most excited to have this conversation. I'm not going to lie. Me and you have communicated on some level over social media for a while. We actually have mutual friends or mutual people in our lives that go back as far as middle school for me, because I know your sister. I don't know if you know that, but we went to school together. So it's crazy. She would probably have an interesting story or two about me being a little shit in choir. So it's funny how far back we go without actually knowing each other. So I'm excited to get to know you.
Rock and roll, man. Yeah, and shout out to Ray. Shout out to Big Dog Ray too, man. I love that guy.
Yeah, my dad too. That's crazy. That's another funny part about it is like how many people we have that we mutually know without knowing each other personally like that.
Yeah, small world, man.
Definitely. And so the purpose of More Than Music is just to get to know you a little bit more. For the most part, like I said, I work with a lot of artists in upstate New York, but in terms of really getting to know people, I don't get to do that. So this is almost like a selfish thing where I get to know the artist a little more, but obviously the fans get to know you a little bit more. So the first part of this conversation is just going to be getting to know you, who you are, where you've been, where you grew up, and stuff like that. So where'd you go to school and anything like that you want to talk about?
Okay. Well, I went to good old Susquehanna Valley, and I'm super grateful for that. Actually, it was a great coming up, I should say. But man, what else? I've been doing music professionally for almost 10 years now. It'll be 10 years in like a week. My birthday's on the 25th. I don't even know when that is, but it'll be 10 years then. And just love it. It's my life. It's my passion, and it's always come to the surface. No matter what else I was doing in my life, it's always come back around. So I'm just happy to have found that thing for myself.
That's dope. And so before we get too much into the music, let's talk about living in Susquehanna Valley, because I can relate to that too for a little bit. It's definitely a strange thing to hear about someone coming out of Susquehanna Valley, the Conklin area, and being so into the music that you make. It's not impossible to think of, but Susquehanna Valley is definitely more of like a, how would you explain it, I guess?
Would rural be probably would be the best way to start to describe it. I mean, it's a very, I don't know if country, to call it country is maybe a little too far. It's definitely like, rural America, a lot of farms. It's pretty out there, and it's interesting now as I've started to like write stuff, like acoustic stuff. A lot of those memories reflect in the acoustic tunes more, but I can't honestly say what drew me to the R&B type of music, given being brought up there. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, because it's a very different environment. I think that you make a good point. Like rural is a good way to explain it because it's very different. I know, again, growing up in SV, there weren't a whole lot of minority kids in the school alongside me. There was a handful. It's not like living in South Dakota where there's literally one or two. But it wasn't like there was a whole lot of kids that were similar to me in that nature. So it was definitely a different experience. When I ended up moving and going to school in Binghamton, I started to find myself a little bit more in that realm. So it's just interesting to find how you got into music from there.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where like it started with a choir and chorus, but I just can't speak to where the influences came from. I can tell you that I remember the day that I heard Ordinary People and saw the music video by John Legend. And that was definitely kind of a life-changing moment because I was like, oh, I want to do that. But I don't know. I was even like, I actually just found a box of notebooks that I had when I used to like write raps, like when I was like, I don't even know, man, like 15 or 16, and they are hilarious. Maybe I would actually one of these days I want to show you one. I tried to work the word coat rack into a song, and I just felt like I don't know why or how, but yeah, I don't know. It just kind of, I don't know. It just was kind of a thing. I guess the more I reflect on it, the more confusing it is to me too, honestly.
And well, for a lot of people, when I talk to them about it on this show too, it kind of comes back to family. Is there anyone necessarily in your family that drew you to music or anything like that?
I mean, sorry, I'm eating a banana right now. My mom has played a bunch of instruments for her whole life. But she was really like she really loved like folk, like kind of like 70s folky stuff. So it didn't come from there. My dad has always listened to like the Ohio Players. I mean, he never really put me onto. I kind of just found music, my own taste in music, I guess, because I remember I was a real pop kid growing up. Like I wasn't listening to like a ton of rap or definitely not R&B. I was like, I remember I just had a conversation with somebody the other day. Like I like broke my Backstreet Boys cassette tape, rewinding it, trying to learn the lyrics for all the songs. Like that was, I don't know, man. It's just it's developed. I mean, it's evolved throughout my life, but I honestly can't say as to where that initial like spark beyond it just being kind of like an after school activity or a hobby happened. You know.
Right. And so was there a point where you decided to make that transition from it being an after school activity or hobby and really start going after this professionally?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it wasn't really until like college. I was. It was the first time like because I went to school in White Plains, and that was the first time that I was in a situation where I was coming around more ethnic diversity and meeting different kinds of people who wanted to be artists and do art and things like that. So I was kind of thrown into this world where it was like, oh wow, like this person knows how to record on a laptop, and these guys just want to get together and like freestyle in the backseat of a car or something like that, and it opened up the option to actually pursue it beyond chorus or NISMA or whatever, what have you. So that's kind of where it started. My grandmother bought me my first MacBook, and I started with GarageBand and just started like recording stuff on it. I think I had a Snowball mic at first. Um, yeah, and the first song I ever recorded was because my college sweetheart broke up with me my freshman year, and I locked myself in my dorm room for 3 days and made and made like a 3-verse like straight rap song, like real J. Cole Drake style stuff, just super sad. And that's probably the first song I ever recorded, I think.
And that's so funny to hear, like, you talk about that part too, is that you sort of started out into making music as more of a rap artist, right, than the R&B side. There were elements of it, but
Yeah, like super super rap. Like and it's fun. Like again, I have to go back to these notebooks that I have. I was writing rhymes and stuff like that in poetry before any of it, and then it's obviously Drake kind of set the mold for light skinned people, one, but two, music in general, as far as like adding some melodies into what you do. And so I kind of like, I think that was the biggest thing, was like making an effort to not like he cast a shadow for 10 years, over any artist that wanted to rap and sing, or any light skinned artist in general. So that was like a real weird time, a rough time.
was it difficult for you because you were producing real quality music, but I can guarantee that you were consistently compared to having the sound of Drake, especially early on.
Well, yeah, I mean, like first of all, just like back in college, I had a buzz cut, like, and so like I'm light skinned with a buzz cut, uh, and like you're gonna get that all the time. Like I grew my hair long. I'm The Weeknd. I dyed my hair blonde. I'm Odell Beckham Jr. I buzzed my hair. I'm Drake. It's just one of those things. But yeah, and it wasn't always quality music. I can promise you that. I will. I want to send you that track "Winter" just so you know where where it really started. It was not. it was not popping
Well, and
initially.
that's the cool thing about this conversation, and I hope a lot of the local artists, because I know a lot of local artists look up to you, and they can see the path that you took is probably a lot more similar to theirs than maybe what they expect to hear. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was like kind of parallel to that. I think it was I was listening to an interview with John Mayer, who's recently become one of my favorite musicians, and they played a couple of his demo things, and I was like, damn, this is like bad. I've also heard Ed Sheeran when he started singing was actually, I mean, his voice is immaculate, but it really was not even close when he started singing. Like he actually couldn't sing, and somehow um, just completely flipped it into just this incredible voice. I mean, it's such an evolutionary process, and I think that's why I like recorded music, because to some degree you get to like document. You know, it is what it is. Like one, you're tied to the amount of technology and resources that you have in front of you at the moment, and you're also tied to the emotional state that you're at and the type of art you create. So you get to flip back, like kind of like this photo album, you know, and you can look back and say, oh yeah, that sucked, you know what I mean, or you know, look at how far I've come, look at how much I've learned, or look at how much I've grown and progressed emotionally. Like it's that, I think that's one of the most beautiful things about actually putting music on wax, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And so, what were like some of your early opportunities in music? Because for for some people, they might know that you're Matthew Cornwell, and they might know that Damian Cornwell has a radio station. So they might think that for you, everything is real simple and easy, and that's why you're so good. But I can't imagine it's as simple as it might sound in breaking it down like that.
Well, I'm not related to Damian Cornwell at all.
Wow,
I,
really?
yeah, I'm not related to him at all. Actually, it's really a funny thing for there to be like another, like he looks like he could be my dad. Obviously, there's no relation at all.
I
Actually,
thought he was your uncle or something for sure. That's hilarious.
no, I know, and like so it's funny because with that, like I was when I first started, like I was actually hunting him down, like, hey man, listen, I got some music, like can we do something? Can we work together? Um, and it never really panned out. Like he was working on a thousand things, and like the radio station for one, the studio. He had a bunch of stuff going on. Actually, music. Well, I was going out to Vegas a lot when I first really started making music because my brother lives out there, and he kind of worked his way into the music scene there. And I went out there, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to stay?" So I actually stayed out there for a while. I started as like basically his equipment manager, like setting up for the band and stuff like that. I moved up to running sound for the band, then got into the band, and then me and him tried to do, or not tried to, we broke into like a solo project. So it actually started in Las Vegas, not so much here.
That's crazy. And so when you brought that to New York, was it simple, or did you kind of have to reset when you got to Binghamton after you had already established a little bit in Las Vegas?
Well, like as far as like doing live entertainment, that was a complete reset because at the time I couldn't play any instruments, so I came back home and I was like, damn, because in Vegas I had either my brother was playing guitar and I was just singing, or like the band was playing. So I came back here and I was like, damn, how do I do this? And I was too lazy to pick up a guitar, right? So I picked up a ukulele and just like for a year, man, like really tried, knowing like maybe 10 songs, trying to go get gigs, you know, like no real equipment, like I said, just a uke and like a couple mics or something like that, trying to go and play freaking ukulele at gigs, to make money. But the one thing I will say is while I was in Vegas is that that was where I really started to, I actually sat down for days on end and weeks on end and came to understand the like plugins, like EQs, compressors, how to record, and how to mix things in, and that was where that really started there. So I carried that back to New York for sure. That really gave me the foothold into that. But yeah, the live music thing, it floundered for sure a couple years, few
Well,
years actually.
and that's something I would love to touch on because I'm sure that information could help people at least a little bit. Is how do you necessarily find that groove into actually getting a live event situation where, because you were performing before the pandemic quite a bit.
Yeah, we had man, last year was so dope, man. And I had, when I say we, I mean, the band and we had such high expectations. for this year. But that's kind of it's like a two-sided conversation, because there's live events where it's all about your original creative work, and then there's live events that are about, cover tunes. You know what I mean? Like there's like going and performing, and then there's entertaining. I mean, to some degree, there's going to be entertaining in any scope of it. But I think that's it. That's really what it was. I mean, from the outside looking in, it can be like, wow, he's like playing out a lot, he's doing whatever. But it didn't start like that. Like, it started with, I was in kind of like an oldies cover band, with a bunch of like older people, called Brotherhood, that's been in town, that's been in Binghamton for almost 50 years. Like, literally, I told my grandmother that, and it finally validated to her that I'm a musician, because they played like her prom or something like that. So finally she was like, oh, you do music. Oh, okay, I understand.
That's
now.
great.
Because it was always like a super dry conversation. She's like, what have you been up to? I'm like, well, I do music, And she's like, that's great. So, Callie, how's college going? How's your job? And I'm like, damn, like, I can't, like, I was really getting looked down upon until that. But again, that's a situation where you're doing shows, which is dope. And like I said, I know there's a group of people that really don't look favorably upon, cover musicians and stuff like that. And I guess, to each his own, but I love music. I love being in front of people. I love performing. I love singing. When I was offered the opportunity, I didn't even blink twice at it. I mean, you're telling me I get to get paid to go and hang out at a packed bar, or go to a wedding and make X amount of dollars, for singing, for doing what I love to do. So it wasn't even a question. But I think it was really with Icarus, the album, that I made the effort to put a band together, and then that's where it started to progress from only cover tunes into, okay, now we're doing what we want, and when we do cover tunes, we do them the way that we want, and it's just been like kind of a gradual progression.
And I'm sure doing the cover tunes, even though it might not have been your first ideal situation, it obviously opened up opportunities along the way too, right?
Yeah, and it also definitely. I mean, one, it was just like, doing the cover tunes, we would do things like weddings and stuff like that, where you're meeting people, and there's always somebody at a wedding who's like, hey, yeah, I know some people, like, let me grab your information or something like that. It never really pans out, but you've always got somebody there like that. But also, it really helped me learn to understand how to navigate booking, and interacting with venues, kind of like cutting my teeth on the business side of things. I got a chance to understand like how to handle stuff like that, because I'm the type of person where it's like, okay, so how much do you need to come sing for 2 hours? And I'm like, shit, I would do it for free. So how do I really, put a number on something like that, But meeting Carl Petro, he was the band leader for Brotherhood. He definitely showed me how to handle it and get what you're worth, and sometimes more.
What a fundamental experience too, dude. Like that just that in it of itself is worth going that route, because of the information, the wealth of knowledge you were able to take from it. And because I can relate to that type of situation. When you're doing what you enjoy doing and you're good at it, it's generally easy, so you don't feel comfortable charging a whole lot initially. So you have to be sort of taught how to do that and how to navigate that type of situation. And that is almost just as important as knowing how to make the music,
I absolutely agree. And also when to walk away from something too, I guess that was the hardest thing. I think it was my fear of rejection when approaching a venue or interacting or about like a price, bargaining for a price, is that sometimes you set this value for yourself, and if you say that you have to say it with pride. I mean, if you're the same way, you put a lot of pride and passion into your work. So when you say it's worth this to me, and not because people will look at it and they say, okay, well, you're only singing for 2 hours and you're just singing. I'm like, no, I've been doing this for 10 years to get to this point where I can come here and produce something professional for you. Like, there's some kind of like story about a painter in Spain or something. He did this little 10-minute sketch for somebody, and he's like, I'm definitely paraphrasing terribly, but he tries to charge him like $10,000. I'm like, what? It took you 10 minutes? He goes, no, it took my entire life, to be able to do this, and you just have to recognize that at a point, I guess.
Yeah, no, and that's another fair thing, especially initially, because you want to give people a price that they're going to be okay with, and
Yeah.
you're afraid to lose an opportunity by giving them a price that you think is fair, but will push them away. So it's crazy, again, just how much that knowledge and information probably helped you in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I'm so honestly so grateful for the experience with Brotherhood. It just it also, I mean, there was also times where we would run, you know, maybe I would play 3 nights in a row, and that was like the first time I started playing consecutive nights or multiple gigs in a day, stuff like that. Like it really was like it was kind of like musician boot camp, like to a degree, and I'm forever grateful to Jim Apicella and Carl Petro and Cass Rosick for the opportunity, man. It was great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, in all that, you mentioned Icarus, your project that you previously dropped. Let's talk a little bit about that one because it's a super polished project. What was the fan feedback and everything like? Well, before we even get to that part, how did you put that project together? Because you mentioned that you put together a band.
Yeah, now that the project came together actually because so after Vegas, I came back to Binghamton for a while. I think in between that, I actually went to New York City for a little bit and came back. And then after New York City, I went to Atlanta for a while. And while I was in Atlanta, the relationship I was in at the time kind of failed. And it was the coming back from Atlanta at the time felt kind of like a fall from grace. I mean, because we all had high expectations when we moved out there. So, to come back, it just, like I said, I mean, I don't remember where I stumbled upon the story of Icarus, but it just seemed relevant. I just kind of felt like it just felt like a fall from grace coming back home, and this relationship had failed, and it's just kind of starting from zero. But it truly was well received on a level that I didn't expect. We did the show at Endicott Performing Arts Center. I don't know, it was like March like something of probably like 3 years ago now. Drop some music, Matt, but we did it like we did it like, yeah, it was probably like 3 years ago, and we actually almost sold the venue out, which was like 300 plus seats. And I was like, I was, it's one of those things, whenever you throw a party, you're like, I wonder if anyone's going to show up at all, like this is, who knows what's going to happen, but it went really well. And there's people who actually, the album came off of iTunes probably a few weeks ago, and I actually had a few people hit me up like, dude, where is so and so? But it was a fun project. In my honest opinion, it for me it felt like it fell a bit short creatively, I guess. But sometimes when you have things that you're trying to say, you focus more on those than on the overall creativity of a project. So it happens.
That's fair. And so has this project, because you mentioned you haven't dropped music in a while, has it been interesting watching it randomly reemerge? Because I know I didn't catch on to it when it was first released. It was probably about a year after. So how is it when people randomly hit you up and they've heard it for the first time? What was that like?
It's exciting, and most of the time when that happens, if whatever song they name, like I'll go back and listen to it, because I don't generally listen to it anymore unless it comes on like shuffle or something on my phone. But like listening back to it, I'm like, oh man, like this wasn't so bad, like and just appreciating the moment that I was in with some of the stuff. So it's just cool when people find it, because once you make it, you kind of put it to bed, and then every now and again you get to become reacquainted with it. You're like, oh shit, like.
Yeah, it's like someone reminding you of a memory, which doesn't always happen.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's funny you bring up the fact that it's not on iTunes anymore, because that is on my list. I was wondering like if that was something you had intentionally done, let it come off of the DSPs, or if it was just something that happened.
I mean, it was something that happened, but as I realized it was happening, I was like, this would be an interesting time to kind of pull back um, reconfigure everything again. Like I said, this year I went from like, I mean, last year I wasn't really thinking. I was just moving. You know, it was like 3 or 4 gigs a week. Like do it. Like I didn't, I wasn't really thinking about anything. I was just moving. And so to have this year to like sit and be like, okay, how do you want to roll things out? How do you want to, what do you want to do differently? What do you want to learn? It's, I've been appreciative of that. So I'm just taking the time to like pull it all back and kind of, just see what happens, and honestly, there was the stray thought, like, let's see if anybody even notices, and I'm obviously grateful that somebody did. So that was nice.
Yeah. And so with what's going on in the world, the pandemic and everything, how has it been like for you in terms of just figuring everything out with music and all that?
Just like I said, man, it just feels like, it feels halfway between like retirement and like summer vacation when you were in high school. Like it's just, I'm out of I'm out of typical responsibility, and there's no more so than that. It's just there's not the pressure, that there typically is to, maintain a level or, keep being consistent, keep producing. I mean, obviously there are people that are still doing that, but I kind of looked at it and I was like, well, listen, man, any song that I drop, there is going to be a headline within 15 minutes this year that is going to completely distract from anything, that I do, and like just steamroll it. So I was like, you know what, let's just let life happen right now. Let's relax and not put any pressure on this creative process, and instead kind of focus on learning different aspects and things that, because I enjoy and I'm proud of the creativity that I use, but I've always felt like I wish I knew this a little bit better. I wish I knew these plugins a little bit better. I wish like right now, my focus is learning miking and recording live instruments, because I've always worked with, stems from electronic production. So taking something like, that's what I was doing earlier today, taking my amp, miking that, direct versus, miking the room and stuff like that. Those little things, because like when it comes down to it, I can only do as much as I know. And that's where I'm hitting this spot where I'm like frustrated with the things that I don't know, because I want to do more and I just don't even know what I don't know. So I'm just out here kind of fishing around,
Right. So you took this time as an opportunity just sort of to gain some more knowledge and expand on what you already know, which is, again, that's really cool to see, because I hear from a lot of artists that you're someone a lot of people look up to, and you're sort of the cream of the crop of the area to an extent. So to hear that you're still utilizing this time to learn, and what a interesting and truly a smart way to go about it, especially the way that this year has gone, to step back and realize that no matter what you drop, what's going on in the world is probably going to overshadow it for one reason or another. And that's something I haven't heard people say, but it makes total sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, people, I know everybody, it's just, I feel like we're going to look back on this as just a lost year, where it's like, yeah, well, I mean, nothing really happened. I mean, obviously, other than what was happening, nothing really happened. No one could really do anything. So it's like, why not just like hang back and embrace that, instead of, because obviously for the first couple of months, I was like beating my head against the wall. Like, how the hell am I supposed to, I'm a live entertainer. Like, that was literally my profession for probably, the last 2 years, more than the majority of my time. So like for the first couple months, I was like, what am I going to do, man? And then I was like, you know what, that's what we're not going to do. I'm not going to sit here and just dwell on what's not happening. I would rather just, like I said, just take the time and see what comes of that, instead of, being upset about it.
Right. And so with the removal of your previous project and taking the time to learn and change a little bit of stuff, has there been any worry to sort of rebrand yourself again, if you will, because you haven't always been Matthew Cornwell. That wasn't your initial artist name. So has it been something that you were worried about doing a second time, or maybe not even a second time, but just changing up again?
Um, I always took that really seriously until my Facebook got deleted, like very unceremoniously. I after that, because I went by Black and White for years, and then I decided I just wanted to go by Matthew Cornwell as a stage name, which honestly I don't want to say I regret, but I would prefer to have like a legitimate stage name, like on some Elton John shit or something like that. If I was gonna do anything, I would do that. But no, like I was so like, okay, I need the Matthew Cornwell handle, I need blah 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 blah, and then like my Facebook got deleted, and I was like, you know what? I'm not. I'm just. I would. I don't. I'm just not gonna just like pull my hair out about it anymore, man. But I've given it thought, about, like I said, rebranding with an actual like a stage name or something like that. But I mean, as far as a name, I don't know about that. But as far as like just increasing the branding image, and as far as like paying more attention to the things that I wear when I'm presenting myself in pictures and videos and stuff like that, and even down to like the types of props and things that are around you when you're presenting yourself visually. Yeah, I mean, I think about that all the time.
Dope. We are about to talk about where you're headed, because you mentioned that you've been learning, utilizing this time to learn, but that's not all you've been doing. You've been making some music, but we're going to play one of these tracks that you sent me. Before we do that, which one of these would you like for me to play?
Oh man, if you could, I would say, I guess, no, Where Do We Go is fine. I like that, the PLD, that's Pretty Little Darling. That's just got a sax solo from this cat named Jordan Lawrence, and it's like, he went off on it. But I guess I'd say Where Do We Go?
All right, but we'll play Where Do We Go right now, and then when we close the interview, we'll play the other track to finish it out. How's that sound?
Sounds like a plan.
Bet.
I ain't taking chances no more, no. Cause I see where it gets me, and I see how you miss me when I'm gone. I wanna make you choose, between having the love that you need and staying up late, wondering if I'm outdoing me. But I understand it. You wanna love empty-handed. I can't stand it, no. So don't leave me standing alone, wondering where do we go from here, yeah. Oh, wondering where do we go from here, yeah. I ain't questioning your stances no more, no. Cause I see how you hold them, and I know that it's over when you say I don't wanna be the one that's here hanging on to something, knowing I'd be better off for running away, and feeling like we tried for nothing. I get to the east side, now where you reside, and I see the divide is coming every day. So tell me you see why I'm stumbling, trying to find some way to say it's all okay. Cause I just can't stay wondering where do we go from here, yeah. Oh, wondering where do we go from here, yeah. Wondering where do we go from here, yeah. Oh,
So, if nothing else, this track tells us you've been learning, but you've also been busy working. Is this part of a project? Is this just going to be a single release? Just something you're working on to hold tight?
That was gonna. I think that was gonna be a single release. Basically, I outlined a project that I wanted to release, and it's going to be called Velvet Stone. So I had put together like a preliminary track list, and I played it actually for my buddy Kelsey McBean, Mr. McBean, and I asked him, I was like, honestly, what do you think about this project? Like, how do you feel about it? And he's like, it's good, but I definitely feel like you played it safe, and I couldn't have agreed more. I think that it was just kind of really in the box, and so I don't want to say I scratched it. Obviously, I kept all the tracks, but I just went into this whole different mindset doing it again. Like, I've been listening to a lot of like Harry Styles, his self-titled album, the one before this, Watermelon Sugar, and just getting into like diversifying like vocal effects. Like I said, incorporating some live instrumentation and stuff like that, and also just doing more abstract stuff, a little bit less structurally with the songs, than just experimenting with stuff like that. So I was going to drop Velvet Stone here. It probably would have been out already, but in having that conversation with him, I was like, what's the need? Like, is there really, like, I would hate to drop this and look at it and be like, damn, I know we had a conversation where I said I could do more than I didn't, and I just dropped it, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'd rather just, poke around a little bit more.
No, that's fair, and shout out to Mr. McBean. I've definitely heard his name tossed around, and he's someone I know quite a few artists go to in that same type of situation, because he's going to be brutally honest and supportive as well. So shout out to him for that, but it's very interesting to hear, because we've talked about you learning and stuff, and in a way you put together a project and still learned that you wanted to do more for it. So it's very interesting to hear that.
Yeah, that was my biggest qualm with Icarus was like, I listened to it, and again, I was like, okay, like I think the songs are put together well enough, but I just won't. I'm not gonna drop this project until when I play it through, I'm like, damn, I'm super proud of this. No part of me is dropping this because I felt pressured to make a release. I'm dropping it because it's there. That's what it is, and I'm letting that come to me on all fronts, from the the visuals for the album cover and just the branding overall for it. I want the story to come to me, because I'm such an album guy. I'm such like a concept album guy. I really, really, really love the story that's told over the scope of an album, and I want to take time to let that develop itself creatively too. I feel like I rushed on that side of things with the last one. So.
No doubt, and I don't blame you, and it all makes a lot of sense. But is there any fear in you? And maybe fear is the wrong word, but with making people wait even longer, because yes, they have waited this long, but an additional wait, I don't think it's gonna hurt. But was there any thought process, I guess, in that with what you were doing?
Yeah, there's like, don't get me wrong, like there's a cap on that thought process. Like, I'm definitely not saying like I'm not going to drop anything for another year. Like, that's absolutely not true. It's like, I said this exactly to Kelsey. I was like, listen, we're sitting here listening to this album, right? We have a steak. All right, this album is a steak. Steak's great, okay, but how is your steak garnished, and how is it presented? You know what I'm saying? Does the waiter walk out and throw it at you on a paper plate, or does it come out on fire on a skillet, with all the fixings around it? And I just I just want to spend some more time on the breadth of the album, like the fixings and the presentation of the whole thing. And that's not something that I'm not doubling back and restarting a whole new album. I mean, I would say, in my mind, I would say at best, end of the year, turn of the year, I'm going to cap this thing off and turn into, promo mode and kind of cap it off creatively. But it's just nice, again, like, I got all these thoughts out, but to like be like, damn, bro, there's no pressure. I'm gonna dive back in now. I'm gonna sit in the studio. Like, I'm as I speak to you, I'm sitting around all my guitars and keyboards and all this, like, with nothing but free time, and I'm just like, why not just really see how far we can push it, how much we can learn, and how much, further we can push the things that are coming out, but again, no, I'm not, it's not going to be like another year type deal. I mean, I'm just giving myself maybe, 4 to 6 more weeks
Right.
of being creative and trying to connect the dots.
No, and again, I don't blame you at all, and it's one of those things where you could even consider, like, if you have enough leftovers or anything, doing like an EP in the meantime. Has there been any consideration for stuff like that, or do you want your next release to be a full body of work?
No, I mean, I'm not a huge singles guy. Like, in my mind, I would rather drop an album and then promote singles off of it so that people can double back and catch the whole story. But what I have been tossing around is, with playing the guitar, I've written at this point, since pandemic started, probably 15 or 20 acoustic songs on an acoustic guitar. And I was thinking about maybe doing like a live acoustic album. I don't know about in the in-between time, or as like a double album with this or what, but there's that. And then there's some loosies on the album that I know now won't make it if I put anything else into it. So there'll be some releases, and plus I really want to get that track with Kelsey off. It's called Monse. I love that track. Got to do that soon.
I'm looking forward to it, and I'm just obviously always looking forward to you releasing, but as I know, as a fan, even the singles, it's like, dang, I wish I could get 2 or 3 at once, you know what I mean? So do you just not have a taste for doing stuff like that, I guess?
No, I absolutely do, and honestly, it's more that I haven't given that thought, but literally as you say that, I'm like, why not do that? I mean, I could see doing that in the next couple of weeks, honestly, because I've got, like I said, there's some stuff that it doesn't fall in line with the concept and the story that I'm trying to tell with the album, but it's definitely good stuff in my opinion anyway. Like doing something like, like you said, 3 or 4, or like a 3 or 5 or something like that tells its own little side story. I mean, you've really got my wheels turning about that, actually, as you say that. So I appreciate that.
I'm happy to hear it. And so is it with making the music, that's one thing. In terms of rolling it out, do you like go into a whole different mode? Do you finish the project, sort of let it sit for a minute and start planning what you want to do, or do you start planning that while you're in the midst of creating the project?
Like I guess I'm tossing ideas around as I'm making the project, because, like, again, I'm trying to create an overarching concept typically when I'm doing a project, but usually I try to like cap off the whole creative process, because I don't like involving the two. I don't like involving the marketing side of things with the creation, because obviously I just think it has the tendency to kind of taint what your intention
creativity is.
Yeah, so like, no, I mean, like I said, I'd rather take the rest of October and call it after October, and then spend November, December just like with my, like, my little notebook and my businessman hat on, really, and putting and archiving content. That's how I like to do it. Like, I'll make a project and then I'll go out and I'll shoot a couple videos and get little pieces of video content, lyric videos, talk to people like you and your dad about doing advertising, stuff like that, and try to line all that stuff up, and then just hit play January 1st and say, okay, we're going to roll this out for a month, and then, let it go, or something like that.
That's really smart. And the reason I ask is because I see so many talented artists in upstate who create great music, and I feel like they've got the process of creating great music down, but in terms of actually rolling out the music or promoting it, it kind of gets confusing or just messed up somewhere along the way. So I like to get that perspective from you, someone who is a little bit respected in the area, just to see how you go about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely don't follow my example on the last few songs I released. Like, I sat down for almost a month with Icarus before it rolled out, and I think that's in essence why the album release show went as well as it did, is because I really honed in for I think a good like 3 weeks on exactly how I wanted to roll it out. These things, I've been really lax about the songs that I've released this year, but that's something I get equally excited about, because there's still creativity in the marketing process, the advertising process. So it's fun to be in that realm, and I really just want to take the time with this go around and really really brand it hard and roll it out in a linear way.
No doubt, and that's obviously, I find the fun in that, and that's why I almost get bummed out when I see projects dropped without any or much thought behind it, because just putting a little bit of thought behind it, and I get it, it's a point I've made before, where I think that artists want to create the project and they get it done and then they immediately want to show it to people, and they don't want to take the time to do the middle part in between.
Well, yeah, that's hard. I mean, how many times have you made something like hot and you're just like, yo, I want to like a whatever it is, like a visual or a write up or an interview or like, you know, whatever, and you're just like, dude, I just want people to hear this right now, like right now, you know.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, every time I've done that, I listened to it later and was like, shit, like I could have done so much more. Like I was just too excited. You know what I mean? And
No doubt.
You just kind of jump the gun.
And it's something I think a lot of people learn along the way. It's just one of those things where I'm like, there's so much talent that just kind of gets pushed to the wayside because they're not putting in that extra little bit. So
yeah, I agree.
But it plagues everyone, I think, and where it doesn't plague some of the mainstream artists is because they have a whole team of people paid to do that type of shit for them. So
yeah, see, there's also that side of it. I mean, there's just artists that are like, I don't want to do that shit. Like, I just want to make the music. I don't, you know, it's not my. Whereas you and I find, you know, we find some interest in that and enjoy that. There's plenty of artists who could not want anything less to do with that, you know.
Right, exactly. So we've talked about Velvet Stone a little bit in your process and that you're still working on it, potentially going to see it by the end of the year. Do you have other stuff you're going to work on alongside that, like in terms of a music video or a couple music videos that you would want to drop before or after?
I would love to I probably would do a lead up visual. I'm like so overly critical, one, about like myself on camera, and two, the way that the visuals are received. Like I'm like so picky that I'm at like a standstill with it, because I start thinking about it too much, and I'm like, I need it to be like exactly. And I like cinematic things, you know. So I'm always whipping up some kind of like soap opera style music video in my mind, you know, and executing that is difficult. I mean, and it takes funding, you know, when you really want to do, you know, when you want lighting and you want a team of people to do camera work, you want a director, you want, you know, all of these things, and when it all really comes together, especially when you add in locations and actors and like it gets. And then I just get overwhelmed, and I'm like, fuck it, I'll just make music, you know.
No, I don't blame you, but especially with the videos that you've put out, it makes sense because they're all super high quality. So you obviously want to continue that path, but it's expensive, it's time consuming, it's a little bit difficult. So I don't blame you.
Yeah, well, you know what I found though actually is I love on the lower budget side of things, I love really like raw one take videos, and that's what the next, I would imagine the next visual that I would put out is going to be like a one take type deal. There's something about these really long dynamic shots that really appeals to me, and it's like, you know, it definitely takes like a lot of skill on the cameraman's part to capture, but you can just capture such a raw emotion, a lot of sensitivity in a shot where it's like, you know, it's panning in slow on me and it's like blurring, you know, kind of blurring in and out, and I'm just, you know, whatever the case may be, you know, something like that. So I mean, that's typically where my mind starts with a rollout visual for this album, is some kind of long shot or one take that just really captures kind of what's the word? Not a sensitive moment, but kind of an
genuine,
genuine, like a vulnerable moment, you know, something like that, I guess.
That's dope, man. We've played one track. We're gonna play another one as we close out. Do you have plans to release these in terms of like a specific date, I guess I should say, leading up to the project release or anything like that?
Where do we go? That's probably gonna be, I would imagine that's gonna be the visual one. So I'm actually, I gotta make a couple calls after this too to get jumping on that. That'll probably come. That'll be probably the next thing. Where do we go? And then the next one is probably more of like a deep cut on the album, but that was not what Kelsey had in mind when he heard this one. he was like, wow, because I played this song for him, and I was like, yeah, this isn't going to be on the album, but like, it's just, I don't know, I'm just running out of tracks to play because I'm sitting there with him and I'm just running through songs. I played this one, and he's like, okay, so that's the best one you played for me. And I was like, okay, well, I guess it's just going back on the track list. So we'll see. I mean, anything's possible, man. I'm just, like I said, when I get out of creative mode and we get into branding mode, that we'll figure all that out then.
Makes sense. Do you utilize quite a few people like that, or is Kelsey kind of your go-to guy in terms of people that you have critique your music like that?
I got a few, and it just depends on like what I'm going for. Like, I'll go to Doug Matty, good buddy of mine, an engineer. When we're talking about the production side of things and do things sound clean. I mean, his ear is immaculate. And then with Kelsey, it's just like he's someone who expressed to me when we first met. He was like, I really like listening to your music, and it's nice because he, like you said, he's ultra real with everything, but he also listens to it from like genuinely like I'm listening to enjoy it as well. Because I can't do that. Like when anybody, when you're making music, it's like all I can hear is everything that's wrong in it. I can't sit back and just be like, oh yeah, like I like this coming from me in this time and in this atmosphere. I don't think about those things. So I can play things like that for him, and he's like, okay, this is dope. Like this gives me, it seems like this is, the way that you're going to be perceived, or what have you. So it's definitely him and Doug a lot too.
That's dope. So we're about to play this track. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
It's called Pretty Little Darling. The concept behind it initially was that a woman was poisoning me in the song. I made this song holding the microphone in my living room. I freestyled the words to it, and they stuck. And then, in the second half of the song is a saxophone solo from a local artist named Jordan Lawrence. And he's dope. So that's about it.
Awesome. And we're closing this out. So do you want to put any of your social medias that they could follow you on, anything like that out there?
Just following me on the gram right now. I mean, like I said, I'm in a reconstructive phase here, but just at Matthew Cornwell, definitely keep it active on the gram.
No doubt. And they can find your latest single, Pink Lemonade, on Spotify and iTunes. All those are good places, right?
Yep, all places that you get your music.
All those DSPs. All right, let's play PLD. Thank you, Matthew, for joining me and having a great conversation. Always great to talk to you.
The pleasure is all mine, man. Thank you so much.
Change your mind, you can change your life. Oh, I've seen it done 1,000 times, yeah. Break a smile, and you can change the lights, yeah. It's been on my mind 1,000 nights, yeah. Now I can't seem to breathe. Pretty little darling, what have you done to me? Yeah. Oh baby, I can't seem to breathe. Pretty little darling, what have you done to me? Yeah. Oh baby. Walk the line, you can make this right. Ooh, at least that's what I hear lately. Don't get high, save it for another